He built an empire from scratch, but when it came to raising his daughter, he was completely lost. Jason Carter, a powerful CEO and respected businessman, had everything most people only dream of: luxury cars, a high-rise penthouse, and a growing tech company with his name on it. But behind the scenes, life wasn't nearly as perfect as it seemed. After his wife passed away 3 years ago, Jason was left to raise their daughter, Emma, all on his own. The boardroom he had mastered. The bedtime stories, not so much. Emma was only 5 when everything changed. Sweet, curious, full of light, and suddenly without a mother. Jason did his best to fill in the gaps. He provided the best of everything: a top private school, a housekeeper, tutors, even speech coaches. But what he didn't realize was that what Emma really needed wasn't something money could buy. She needed presence, warmth, connection, and Jason, as much as he loved her, didn't know how to give her that. Not while juggling meetings, investor calls, and press interviews. So he did what he always did. He hired help. After several nannies came and went, each leaving with a polite excuse or a quiet sigh, Jason began to lose hope. Emma wasn't difficult, but she was withdrawn. She missed her mom, and she missed something else she couldn't quite explain, something Jason didn't know how to give. That's when he met Maya. Maya was unlike anyone Jason had interviewed before. She didn't come from an agency with a glossy resume or a rehearsed list of child-rearing techniques. She showed up in a simple blouse and jeans, with a calm confidence and a spark in her eye. She spoke gently but firmly. She asked about Emma, not just what she ate or how she behaved, but about what made her laugh, what scared her, what made her feel safe. Jason was skeptical. She was different. But maybe different was exactly what they needed. He hired her on the spot. At first, Jason kept his distance. He was busy after all. He trusted that Maya was doing her job as long as Emma stayed out of trouble and followed the rules. He noticed small changes here and there. Emma humming more often, drawing colorful pictures, leaving her room to talk instead of hiding away. Maya seemed to bring a calm energy into the house, but Jason didn't think too deeply about it. He didn't have time. That changed one afternoon. It was supposed to be a normal Tuesday. Jason came home early for a conference call that got pushed. He walked in, loosened his tie, and headed toward the living room, thinking about his next pitch. But then he heard music, soft, upbeat, playful. Then laughter. Emma's laughter, the kind he hadn't heard in years. Curious, he walked closer and stopped at the doorway. What he saw froze him in place. Emma and Maya were dancing. Not just swaying, asterisk dancing asterisk. Arms swinging, feet tapping, spinning in circles without a care in the world. Emma's face was lit up with pure joy. Maya was laughing too, her arms raised, moving with the rhythm like no one was watching. It wasn't part of a lesson plan or some therapeutic activity. It was spontaneous, real, free. For a moment, Jason just watched, unable to move. He didn't know what hit him harder, the fact that his daughter looked happier than she had in years, or the realization that he hadn't been a part of that happiness. He hadn't even known it existed. Then, as if sensing him, Maya glanced up. Their eyes met. Her smile faltered slightly, like she wasn't sure how he would react. Would he be upset? Embarrassed? Grateful? Jason didn't know himself. He just stood there, caught between admiration and something that felt a lot like guilt. In that one moment, something shifted. He saw Maya not just as an employee, but as a human being, someone who had stepped into his home and, without asking for anything in return, had given his daughter something priceless: joy, light, a sense of belonging. And suddenly, Jason realized how much he had missed. Not just moments like this, but the chance to truly connect with the little girl who still looked up at him like he was her hero, even if he didn't feel like one. What happened after that would change everything, for Jason, for Emma, and for Maya. Because what started as a job soon turned into something much deeper. And Jason would be forced to confront not only the walls he had built around his heart, but also the unexpected bond forming right in front of him. But in a world built on control and appearances, would he allow himself to open up? Or would he pull away before it was too late? The answer is just getting started. Jason didn't say a word that afternoon. He simply turned around, went into his study, and closed the door behind him. But he couldn't focus. His laptop sat open in front of him, unread emails blinking on the screen. But his mind kept going back to what he saw, his daughter twirling in the middle of the room, holding Maya's hand, giggling like she didn't have a single care in the world. That image kept replaying in his head, tugging at something deep inside he hadn't felt in a long time. He thought about Emma's laughter, the ease in her body, the way her eyes sparkled with something he hadn't seen since before the funeral. Jason leaned back in his chair, suddenly aware of the quiet ache in his chest. He had convinced himself that working harder, earning more, and giving Emma a comfortable life was enough. But seeing her with Maya made him wonder if he'd missed the point entirely. That evening, dinner was quiet. Emma chatted more than usual, her face still glowing from the afternoon's joy. She told him about the song they danced to, how Maya had shown her a move called the twirl tornado, and how she almost fell, but Maya caught her just in time. Jason listened, nodding along, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He glanced at Maya occasionally, trying to read her expression. She seemed calm, composed, as if nothing unusual had happened. But he could tell she was waiting for a reaction. The next few days passed with an odd tension hanging in the air. Jason started coming home a little earlier, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He found himself lingering near the living room or kitchen, just to catch a glimpse of how Maya interacted with Emma. Sometimes they cooked together. Sometimes they painted. Other times they just talked, real conversations, filled with emotion and imagination. It was the kind of connection Jason hadn't been able to create, no matter how hard he tried. Still, he didn't quite know what to say. Part of him felt grateful to Maya for opening Emma up again. But another part of him, the one that still clung to control, felt something unfamiliar. Vulnerability, maybe even jealousy. Not in a petty way, but in the way that made him realize just how disconnected he had been from his own daughter. He began noticing more small things, like the way Maya always got down to Emma's level when she spoke, how she never brushed off a question, no matter how strange or silly, how Emma would look at her with complete trust. It wasn't just about dancing or playing games. It was about safety. Maya had created a space where Emma felt safe to be herself, even when Jason wasn't sure how to do the same. One night, Jason found himself standing outside the door to Emma's room, listening. Inside, Maya was reading her a bedtime story. Her voice was soft and steady, and Emma was completely focused, her little voice chiming in with questions and giggles. Jason's hand rested on the doorframe. He didn't want to interrupt. He just stood there, in the shadows, listening to the kind of moment he never realized he'd been missing. But with all this quiet change, a question began forming in Jason's mind. Who really was Maya? She had come into their lives so naturally, almost too easily. He realized he knew very little about her outside of her work. Where was she from? What was her story? Why did she seem to understand Emma so well, as if she'd known her for years? Late one night, after Emma had gone to sleep, Jason finally asked, They were in the kitchen. Maya was tidying up, and he leaned on the counter watching her. "You're really good with her," he said carefully. She looked up and gave a small smile. "Thank you. She's a special girl." Jason hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" He said. "Why do you do this? I mean, nannying." Maya paused. Her hands stilled on the dish towel. For a moment, Jason thought she might deflect the question, but then she spoke slowly. "I like helping kids feel seen, especially the quiet ones, the ones who've lost something." Jason felt his breath catch, just slightly. It was the first time she had acknowledged the unspoken truth about Emma's pain. But she didn't elaborate. She turned back to the sink, leaving him with more questions than answers. From that moment, Jason found himself paying closer attention, not just to Maya and Emma, but to himself. To the silence in the house when Maya wasn't around. To the way Emma withdrew again on the rare days Maya took off. And to the way his daughter seemed to come alive when Maya was near. But as their bond grew stronger, Jason couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. A shift, a change, maybe even a reckoning. He didn't know what it was yet. He only knew that this wasn't just about a nanny and a child anymore. It was something more, and soon he would have to face it. Jason started noticing the small shifts first, not just in Emma, but in himself too. He wasn't sure when it began, maybe the night he caught himself scrolling through Maya's resume again, trying to find something he'd missed the first time. He wasn't looking for anything bad, not really. But there was a restless part of him that needed to understand her more. Who was this woman who had walked into his home and somehow done what he couldn't? Why did it matter so much to him? He told himself it was about Emma's safety. That as a father, it was normal to want to know who was spending time with his daughter. But deep down, there was more to it. It wasn't about mistrust. It was about discomfort, the uncomfortable truth that Maya was changing things. And not just for Emma. Emma had become more vocal, more expressive, more open about her feelings. But with that came questions Jason wasn't ready for. One night as he tucked her in, Emma asked softly, "Daddy, why don't you laugh like Maya does?" Jason froze. He smiled, said something light, but it stayed with him all night. The more Maya brought light into their home, the more Jason realized how dark it had quietly become. But it wasn't just emotional tension that began to grow. There was professional pressure too. Jason's company was expanding faster than expected, and investors were pushing him hard. Long hours were stretching even longer. More missed dinners, more phone calls during bedtime. And now a new competitor had emerged, mimicking his product and threatening to undercut the market. His board was on edge. He was on edge. In the middle of this chaos, Maya stayed steady. Always calm, always focused. But even she started showing signs of being pulled in different directions. One afternoon, Jason overheard her on a phone call in the backyard. Her voice was low, serious. "I told you I can't right now," she said. "I'm not going to walk away from this girl just because it's complicated." Jason didn't say anything at the time, but the words stuck. Who was she talking to? What was so complicated? And what did she mean by not walk away? He didn't ask, but the mystery started to chip away at his trust. He couldn't help it. It wasn't just his company at stake anymore. It was his daughter's heart. And his own. Then came the day Emma fell at school. Jason was in a meeting when he got the call. Emma had tripped during recess and hit her arm pretty hard. She was okay, but shaken. Maya was the one who showed up first, even before the school nurse had finished calling. By the time Jason rushed to the hospital, Maya was already sitting beside Emma, holding her hand, whispering something that made her smile through the tears. Jason thanked her, but something inside twisted. It should have been him. He should have been the one there first. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, Jason finally confronted Maya. "You didn't tell me you had outside commitments," he said, his voice sharper than he meant. Maya didn't flinch. "Is that a problem?" she asked calmly. "I just need to know if you're planning on staying. Emma's getting attached." She looked at him for a long moment. "And you?" Jason opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The silence between them said more than either of them could. Things became more complicated after that. Jason's sister, Rebecca, came to visit. She hadn't seen Emma in over a year, and while she was loving and kind, she had opinions. Strong ones. Over dinner, she made a passing comment about Maya. "You've got a nanny now," she said, eyebrow raised. Interesting choice. Jason didn't reply, but Maya caught it. Her eyes dropped to her plate. Emma stayed quiet the rest of the meal. Later, Rebecca pulled Jason aside. "I'm just saying, you barely know this woman. Be careful. You're not just hiring someone, you're letting them into your life." Jason wanted to push back, but part of him couldn't. Because he was letting Maya in. Slowly, quietly, and maybe too deeply. And now things weren't so simple anymore. Emma began asking Maya to do things Jason had always done. Tuck-ins, story time, weekend outings. It stung more than he admitted. One night, when Emma ran to Maya after a bad dream instead of him, Jason just stood in the hallway, unsure of where he belonged anymore. He was losing ground, in his company, in his home, and maybe even in his own heart. The woman he hired to help was doing far more than he expected, and he didn't know if he was okay with that, or if he was just afraid of what it all meant. The days that followed felt heavier. Every interaction between Jason and Maya was polite, but edged with something unspoken. Emma, young as she was, sensed it too. She had started asking strange questions, quietly, cautiously. "Daddy, are you mad at Maya? Or is Maya leaving?" Jason always reassured her, told her everything was fine, but deep down, he wasn't sure anymore. Not because Maya had done anything wrong, but because of what he was feeling. What he didn't know how to deal with. Jason had spent most of his life solving problems. Business deals, investor tensions, product launches. He handled them all with focus and logic. But this wasn't something he could fix with numbers or strategy. This was personal and messy. And the more he tried to make sense of it, the more tangled it got. He found himself watching Maya when she wasn't looking, trying to read her. Did she want to leave? Was she planning something? Or was he just scared of the way she made him feel? Meanwhile, work kept piling up. The new competitor had launched an almost identical product, and the press was catching on. His team was scrambling, the board wanted answers, and Jason was being pulled in every direction. Still, no matter how demanding things got, he found himself looking forward to getting home, just to see Emma, just to see Maya. And every time he walked through the door, he felt the growing pressure of a truth he couldn't say out loud. Then came the night of the company gala, a black tie event he hosted every year. He almost canceled, but investors insisted he attend. Emma stayed with Maya, as usual, and Jason promised to be back before midnight. He left in a sleek suit, his smile polished for the cameras, but his mind wasn't on the speeches or the handshakes. It was at home. By 10 p.m., his phone buzzed. It was a message from Maya. ***, call me when you get a moment. It's not urgent, but important. ***. Jason stepped outside the venue, into the cold night air, and dialed her number. She answered immediately. "I didn't mean to worry you," she said. "Everything's okay with Emma. She's asleep." Jason exhaled, but his chest stayed tight. Then what's going on? There was a pause. Then Maya's voice came, quieter this time. I got a call from my sister. She's been asking me to come home. My mom's health isn't good, and they need help. Jason didn't say anything at first. Are you going? He finally asked. I don't know yet, she said. I wasn't going to bring it up tonight, but I didn't want to leave you in the dark either. His fingers clenched around the phone. Emma will be crushed. I know, Maya whispered. So will I. Jason hung up soon after, his heart thudding louder than the music from the gala inside. He didn't sleep much that night. The idea of losing Maya hit him harder than he expected. Not just for Emma's sake. Not just because she had become essential in their lives, but because she mattered to him more than he was ready to admit. The next morning, everything felt off. Emma asked if something was wrong, and Jason just kissed her forehead and said no. But Maya saw through it. Their eyes met in the hallway. Neither of them said anything, but the weight between them was heavy. Jason started avoiding the house more. He buried himself in meetings, flew out for 2 days on a short business trip, hoping space would clear his mind. But all it did was make him more anxious. When he returned, Emma barely smiled. She was quieter, distant. Maya had kept everything together, but even she seemed tired. There were shadows under her eyes, a kind of sadness she didn't bother hiding anymore. That night, Jason stayed up long after everyone had gone to bed. He sat alone in the living room, sipping cold coffee, staring at the family photos on the mantel. One in particular caught his eye, a picture of Emma, beaming in the backyard, Maya crouched beside her, both of them covered in paint from some messy art project. It wasn't framed, just printed on plain paper and stuck there with a magnet. Still, it meant more than all the polished photos with staged smiles. He picked it up and just stared. The walls he'd built around himself were cracking. Maya wasn't just a nanny anymore. She had become part of their rhythm. She had filled a space Jason didn't even realize was empty. But now that space felt like it might collapse. And the worst part, he still hadn't told her how he felt. The fear of losing control, of making things complicated, of saying something that couldn't be taken back, it had kept him silent. But time was running out. Maya was waiting for an answer. Emma was sensing everything. And Jason was standing at the edge of something real, something terrifying. He just didn't know if he was brave enough to take the next step. The next morning, Jason woke to silence. The kind of silence that didn't feel peaceful. It felt like something was missing. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a pale glow over the kitchen. No sound of cartoons in the background, no clinking of breakfast plates, no laughter. He walked down the hallway and peeked into Emma's room. Her bed was made. That was odd. She never made her bed without being asked. A strange unease started creeping in. He checked the guest room. Empty. Kitchen, nothing. Just a note on the table in Maya's handwriting. Asterisk took Emma to the park. Back before lunch. Needed some air. Asterisk. It was simple, but something about the message made Jason feel off balance. Maybe it was the needed some air part. He read it twice, then sat down, staring at the note as if it might explain everything he was feeling. He picked up his phone to call Maya, but stopped. He didn't want to seem overbearing. Still, something didn't sit right. By noon, they hadn't come back. Jason tried calling, no answer. He left a message, trying not to sound panicked. Then another. An hour passed. Then 2. He called the park, then the other one nearby. Nothing. He tried to talk himself down. Maybe they ran into someone. Maybe they got ice cream. Maybe Maya's phone died. But none of it felt right. Because Maya never disappeared like this. She was reliable. Always clear, always on time. And Emma? She never stayed away this long without telling her dad. Ever. He called again. Still no answer. Then finally, just past 3 p.m., a text. ***, sorry. We're okay. Something came up. We'll explain soon. ***. Jason stared at the message. That wasn't Maya. Not the Maya he knew. Short, vague, distant. His pulse quickened. He didn't want to overreact, but every inch of him was screaming that something was wrong. By the time they returned, nearly 5 p.m., Jason was pacing the living room, half relieved, half furious. The door opened, and Emma ran inside with a tired smile, holding a balloon in one hand and what looked like a small gift bag in the other. Maya followed behind her, looking drained, her eyes a little red, like she'd been crying. Before Jason could speak, Maya held up her hand. "I know, I should have called. I'm sorry." Jason tried to keep his voice steady. "Where were you?" Maya glanced at Emma, then back at him. "Can we talk after she's settled?" Jason nodded, tight-lipped. Emma bounced into her room, humming to herself, completely unaware of the tension buzzing like electricity in the hallway. In the kitchen, Maya sat down first. Jason stayed standing. "There's something I didn't tell you," she began. Not because I was hiding it, but because I wasn't sure it would ever matter. Jason crossed his arms, bracing himself. "I used to know someone who worked for your company," she said quietly. "A while ago. Before I started nannying. It was personal. He wasn't just a coworker. We were close." Jason's eyebrows furrowed. "Okay." She hesitated, then continued. "He was involved in the early days of your software. One of the first engineers. But something happened. He felt he was pushed out, unfairly. He never let it go." Jason's stomach dropped. "What are you saying?" "His name is Marcus. He's my older brother." Jason didn't know what to say. "He's the one who started your new competitor," she said finally. "The one copying your product." Jason stepped back like he'd been hit. The name Marcus*, he knew it. From emails, from board meetings. He was the guy stirring trouble, pitching to investors, trying to poach clients. And now Maya was telling him she was his sister. "I didn't know at first," Maya said quickly. "I had no idea when I applied. He never told me your name. I found out after I'd already started working here. And by then," she paused. "By then, I cared too much about Emma to walk away." Jason's mind spun. Everything felt upside down. This woman, who had become part of his family, who had brought his daughter back to life, was related to the man trying to tear down everything he'd built. "Why now?" he asked, his voice low. "Because Marcus found out," Maya said. "He saw a photo. He knows I work here. And he came to the park today. That's why I didn't answer. I didn't want to scare Emma. I didn't know what he was going to say." Jason looked at her, torn between disbelief and something else. Betrayal, maybe. Confusion, hurt. Everything in him wanted to yell, to push her away. But when he looked in her eyes, all he saw was fear. Not fear for herself, fear for Emma. For his daughter. "I love that little girl," Maya said, her voice trembling. "She's the reason I stayed. Not my brother. Not anything else." Jason couldn't speak. The weight of this twist, the tangled connection, the timing, the trust now cracked right down the middle. It was too much. But one thing was clear. Nothing would be the same after this. Jason stood in the kitchen, motionless, the silence thick between them. Maya had just dropped a truth that felt like it split the floor in two. His mind raced, trying to put the pieces together. The months of connection, the trust, the moments she shared with Emma. And now this. Her brother was the man trying to destroy everything he had built from the ground up. It felt like betrayal, and yet, something in her eyes told a different story. It wasn't deception. It was fear, regret, maybe even love. "You should have told me," Jason finally said, his voice low but heavy. "Not now. Back then, the moment you found out." "I know," Maya replied, not defending herself, not explaining, just acknowledging. "I didn't know how." He looked away, staring out the window like he might find clarity in the fading sunlight. "And what does he want?" "Marcus." "He wants me to leave," she said. "He said I crossed the line, that I'm choosing the wrong side." But I told him he's wrong. That Emma's not a business move. She's a child, and she's changed me. Jason turned to her, his expression softening just slightly. "You chose her over him." "I chose what's right," she said, firm now. "I know what he's doing, and I won't be a part of it." For a long moment, there was only silence. Jason sat down across from her. His anger had cooled, but something else had taken its place, weariness. The burden of too much, all at once. He glanced toward Emma's room. "She deserves better than all this," he said. "She deserves peace," Maya replied, "and love, and honesty." Jason nodded, then leaned forward, his tone shifting. "But you understand what this means, right? If this gets out, people will say I let my guard down, that I let someone with a direct connection to my biggest threat live in my home. They'll think I've lost control." "I know," Maya whispered. He exhaled slowly. "And if Marcus finds another way to use this, to twist it, it could destroy everything." "I won't let that happen," she said. "I'll walk away if I have to, but not because I want to, only if it protects Emma." Jason shook his head. "I don't want you to go." Maya blinked, surprised. "What?" "I'm tired of pretending I don't see what you've brought into our lives," he said. "Emma needs you, and I think maybe I do too." She stared at him, her expression unreadable. But before either of them could say another word, Jason's phone buzzed. It was his assistant. He almost ignored it, but something told him to answer. The moment he picked up, he knew something was wrong. His assistant's voice was tight. "Jason, we've got a problem. A major blog just released a story. Someone leaked that your nanny is the sister of Marcus Calloway. It's spreading fast." Jason's heart dropped. He locked eyes with Maya. She already knew. The news hit the company within hours. Social media picked it up. Speculation swirled. Investors panicked. By morning, 3 clients had pulled out of pending contracts. Headlines painted it as a scandal. Asterisk CEO hires spy in disguise asterisk the nanny. And the tech thief, too close for comfort asterisk. Jason did his best to control the damage. Press statements, private calls, assurances, but the pressure was crushing. And through it all, Maya stayed silent. She didn't leave, didn't run. She stayed with Emma, kept her world calm even as everything outside spun into chaos. 2 days later, Marcus showed up at Jason's office. No warning. Just walked in with that smug look Jason remembered from years ago. "Looks like my little sister made quite the impression," he said casually. Jason stood. "You had this planned." Marcus smirked. "I just gave the world the truth. What they do with it, that's on them." Jason's fists clenched. "She trusted you." "Yeah, and she should have known better," Marcus replied, eyes cold. "But you were easy. You let her in because you're lonely. Because you needed someone. Weakness always shows up in the softest places. Jason didn't respond. He just stared at him, heart thudding, every nerve tight. And then, without a word, he turned and walked out of the room. The next morning, Jason did something no one expected. He held a press conference. No lawyers, no PR team, just him at a podium. "I want to speak clearly today," he began. "Maya Calloway is not a threat to this company. She is not a spy. She is the woman who saved my daughter's spirit when I was too lost in my own world to see she was slipping away." He paused, voice firm. "And yes, she is the sister of Marcus Calloway. But she made her choice. She chose family. She chose love. And she chose to stay when everything around her told her to run." The cameras flashed. Questions were shouted. But Jason said no more. Later that evening, when he got home, Maya was waiting at the kitchen table, a packed bag beside her. "I saw it," she said. "The press conference." Jason looked at her. "Then you know you don't have to leave." Maya hesitated. "I know, but I'm still going." The house felt quieter after Maya left. Not just in sound, but in spirit. Emma still played and laughed, but there was something different in the air, like a missing piece that made the puzzle incomplete. Jason tried his best to keep things normal. He made pancakes on Saturdays, took Emma to the park, read her favorite bedtime stories. But no matter what he did, her eyes still drifted to the door sometimes, like she was waiting for someone. Like she knew someone important was missing. Jason had expected the headlines to keep growing, to spiral into something worse. But surprisingly, after his statement, the media buzz started to fade. Investors regained confidence, and slowly the calls returned. Some people even applauded his honesty. A few headlines even praised his human approach to crisis. He didn't care much for the praise. It wasn't about saving his image. It was about telling the truth, even if it meant facing uncomfortable questions. He had realized that being a CEO didn't mean hiding behind walls. It meant leading with heart, even when it hurt. Emma asked about Maya almost every day. "When's she coming back?" She'd whisper at bedtime. Jason would pull her close and say, "Soon, sweetheart." She just needed a little time. But even he didn't know if that was true. Weeks passed, then a month. No messages, no calls. Jason respected her silence, though it ached more than he let on. He didn't want to push. He just hoped. One afternoon, as he was cleaning out the playroom, he found one of Maya's notebooks tucked behind a basket. It was filled with little notes about Emma, her favorite snacks, bedtime habits, songs she liked, even the way her smile curved when she was sleepy. Jason sat on the floor, reading page after page. It wasn't just a nanny's notes. It was something deeper. A love letter to a child who had stolen her heart. And in that moment, Jason knew. Maya had never planned to walk away for good. That night, he sent her a simple message. Asterisk, asterisk, we miss you. Come home when you're ready. Asterisk, asterisk. 3 more days passed. Then on a quiet Sunday morning, the doorbell rang. Jason opened the door to find Maya standing there, suitcase in one hand, flowers in the other. Her eyes were teary, but her smile was steady. "I didn't think I'd be this nervous," she said softly. Jason stepped aside without a word, letting her in. Emma came running as soon as she heard her voice. The reunion was instant. Tears, laughter, hugs that didn't want to end. Jason watched from the hallway, heart full, letting the moment wash over them. It felt like the final piece of their puzzle was back where it belonged. Later, after Emma had fallen asleep beside Maya on the couch, Jason sat down beside them. "You didn't have to come back," he said gently. Maya looked at him. "I wanted to." He nodded slowly. "What about Marcus?" He hasn't spoken to me since, she replied. But I've made peace with that. I love my brother, but I won't be part of his war. I choose peace. I choose this. Jason leaned back, feeling something shift inside him. Not just relief, but clarity. It had taken losing everything, almost, to understand what mattered most. Not just the company, not just the reputation, but the people who stood beside you when it all got hard. The ones who didn't leave, or the ones who came back even when they could have stayed gone. Over the next few weeks, life started to feel normal again. But a new kind of normal. A warmer one. Jason began to leave work a little earlier. Maya started taking online classes in child psychology, and Emma, she just seemed happier than ever. The house was filled with dancing again. Music, giggles, late-night kitchen karaoke. One evening, after Emma had gone to bed, Jason and Maya sat outside under the stars. He looked at her, the flicker of the porch light catching her smile. "I never saw this coming," he said. "Neither did I," she replied. "But I'm glad it happened." She nodded. "Me too." And then, after a pause, she added, "Do you ever think we were meant to meet? Not just because of Emma, but all of it, the way it happened." Jason thought for a moment. Sometimes the best things come out of the hardest moments. Maya smiled. "That's what I believe too." The story of the single dad CEO and the nanny who danced with his daughter had started as something simple. A job, a connection. But it became something no one expected. A story of trust, healing, and the kind of love that doesn't fit into neat boxes. Emma would grow up one day and probably forget the smaller moments. The spilled paint, the surprise pancakes, the quiet nights reading under the covers. But she'd never forget the feeling of being loved. Of being the center of a family that chose each other, no matter how complicated it looked from the outside. And for Jason and Maya, their story wasn't perfect. It was real, full of flaws, forgiveness, and second chances. The kind of story that reminded you some connections are worth fighting.